Well, as we open the scriptures today, jumping back into this series, The Way of the Wise, a study on the book of Proverbs, I just want to begin with a picture, and so check this out with me. This comes from the Moody Bible Institute yearbook, circa 1999. This is the men's volleyball team, and third from the left, that's me. Okay, and something I want you to notice is that I have blonde hair. Now, it's not that I used to have blonde hair and it turned dark with age. It's that I bleached my hair blonde. I mean, like burned my scalp, kind of bleached my hair. And you're thinking, why in the world would you do such a thing? It looks terrible. I know. But look at everybody else. Everybody in this picture has bleached blonde hair. We all did it. Why did I bleach my hair? Because all of my friends did it as well. And I could tell you about other phases of my life. I could tell you about my ska music phase. I could tell you about the season of my life where on lunch breaks, I played croquet with my friends. And now stop laughing, because here's the deal. You have stories and you have seasons of your life like this as well, because we're talking today about the powerful, powerful influence of friends on our lives. And so, as we begin to explore this book of Proverbs, and you know, we've been journeying through this series on the weekends, and many of us have been reading the book of Proverbs together through the week in the Wisdom Challenge. I hope you've noticed just the emphasis that Proverbs places on relationships and on friendships in particular. Just so much wisdom that's provided here. Let me just share with you a couple examples. Here we go. Here's one example from the Proverbs. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. It's like righteous people or wise people, they're very intentional about how they choose their friends. Here's another one. Many will say they are loyal friends, but who can find one who is truly reliable? And this proverb just speaks into how difficult it can be to find a really good friend and keep a really good friend. And so if I could just summarize the wisdom that Proverbs provides around this issue of friendships, I might just put it this way. Here we go. The direction and quality of your life is connected to the direction and quality of your friendships. And I just believe that if we were gathered in person, I would see a lot of nodding heads in the auditorium, because this statement is just so true. The direction and quality of your life is connected to the direction and quality of your friendships. And so many of us have experienced this. Now, as we get into this conversation today, I think you're going to be encouraged by the truth that we find in the Proverbs, but I think you're going to find it incredibly challenging as well. In fact, I might go as far to say as you might find it to be actually really disruptive. Because I think what's going to happen is you and I are going to go, yeah, okay, this is true, and just recognize that we might need to make some changes in our friendships if we're really going to pursue the wise path of friendship. And so that's a real challenge, and I just think we need to be aware of it as we jump into this. But something that might be encouraging is just, you know what, the season that we're in right now, I think it's actually a decent opportunity to make changes in our friendships, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But here's where we're headed today. If the quality and direction of our lives is connected to the quality and direction of our friendships, well, it's just a two-part conversation about direction and about quality. And so let's jump in. Part one of our conversation is about direction. And so let's jump into a proverb from chapter 13. Here we go. Walk with the wise and become wise. Walk with the wise and become wise. Question, have you experienced this? Somebody in your life is just really wise, and just being around them just made you a better person, make smarter decisions. Maybe it was a mentor. Maybe it was a coach, an uncle, just a really wise friend. But I just believe that this is true. When you walk with wise people, they just have this gravitational pull. You see, friendships, they have this tendency to pull you in the direction that they are moving. And I just believe this is absolutely true. I mean, think about it. When you hang out with really healthy people, people who eat really clean and exercise regularly. It just feels really weird to be hanging with them and to be eating right out of a family-sized bag of Doritos and to be chasing it down with Mountain Dew just straight out of the 2-liter. I mean, you're probably not going to do that because they have this tendency to pull you toward healthier habits. And when you hang out with people who are just really gracious and kind and encouraging with their words, I mean, over time, you just find yourself speaking the same way to people in your life. And when you hang out with people that have really strong boundaries around alcohol, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to throw back too many beers at a backyard barbecue at their place. I'm just saying that friends have this tendency to pull you in the direction that they're moving. And friends that are growing in their faith, I mean, their relationship with Jesus just really moving forward, they have this tendency to pull you along. In fact, I know many of us, if we would tell our story of coming to know Jesus, it would include a friend or a group of friends who were already followers of Jesus. So all I'm trying to say is that this influence of friends is they often pull us in the direction that they're moving. It's a conversation about direction in our friendships. And so let me ask you to think about something. Think about somebody in your life. You just look at them, and maybe it's the way that they do relationships. Maybe it's how they conduct their business. Maybe it's their faith. Maybe it's how they're involved in their family. And you just look at them and you just go, I just want to be more like you. I just want a little bit more of that in my life. Listen, walk with the wise and become wise. Sometimes becoming a wiser person, it's as simple as who you hang out with. And so let me challenge you to do something. Pull out your cell phone, find that person's contact, text them, just a simple message, hey, let's hang out soon. You don't need to be weird. You don't need to be creepy. You don't need to say, hey, I have a wisdom crush on you. I just want to hang out with you like always. No, just keep it simple. Just, hey, can we hang out soon? Because sometimes growing in wisdom is as simple as who you hang out with. Because friends have this directional influence on our lives and they pull us in the direction that they are moving. And this is true, and I think you recognize it, but isn't it also true that it's not just wisdom that we get pulled in the direction of? No, there's other directions that friends can pull us. In fact, just a confession, I sort of only showed you the first half of this proverb from chapter 13. Let's check out the second half. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. A companion of fools, well, they get hurt. Question, have you been there? I mean, you think about the greatest regrets that you have in your life. Those moments where it's like, man, if I could have a do-over, I would give anything to go back and undo that decision. I have a suspicion that the people that you were hanging out with had something to do with that decision. You think about some of the unhealthy, destructive habits that you've picked up in your life. I have a suspicion that the people that you were hanging out with had something to do with the origins of that destructive and unhealthy habit. You see, friends, they have this tendency of pulling us in the direction that they're moving. And there's a reality that I think we need to acknowledge. And so check this out. I believe that this is true right here. The influence of your friends is often more powerful than the influence of your convictions. And when I say convictions, I mean what you believe is right and wrong. The influence of the people that you're hanging out with, it's often more powerful. It's stronger than even what you believe is right and wrong. I mean, think about this. You believe that gossip is wrong. Talking about someone behind their back when they're not in the room. It's like, yeah, that's not right. That's a conviction that you have. But when you're hanging out with them, you end up doing it anyway. And it's because the influence of your friends is often stronger. It's more powerful than the influence of your convictions. You believe that lying to your parents, it's wrong. It's not right. That's a conviction that you have. But when you're hanging out with them, you have this tendency to lie to your parents. And you believe that drinking too much, getting drunk, it's wrong. You shouldn't do that. But when you hang out with them, it just seems to happen more often than not. The influence of our friends is often more powerful than the influence of our convictions. And those of you who are in middle school and high school, this is why your parents are always freaking out about who you hang out with. And the reason is because we live with the scars and we live with the regrets of poor decisions made under the influence of unwise and foolish friends. And we don't always say it in the right way, and sometimes we say it with too much energy, but understand it's out of a desire to protect. It's because we love you, and we don't want you to carry those same scars and regrets with you throughout your life. You see, wisdom says you will become like your friends. Now, even as I say this, though, I know that some of you are going, listen, no, I won't. Give me some credit here. I have some backbone. I'm not just going to become just like them. Okay, that may be true. But this proverb that we looked at, walk with the wise and become wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. It's not always because you become more of a fool by hanging out with fools. No, sometimes it's just because you're around fools. Sometimes you can get hurt just by being around an unwise friend. And it's something called collateral damage. You tell her something that's very personal, that's very sensitive, and then she tells them. And now everybody knows. And now your reputation is hurt. It's called collateral damage. And you invited your friend to become your roommate, and at first it was fine, it was good, and now your roommate hasn't paid his rent in months and owes you hundreds of dollars. And so you're getting hurt financially. It's collateral damage. Or you were riding in a car with him, he got pulled over from speeding, you didn't realize that he was in trouble with the law, the car gets searched, the cops find a bag of weed under your seat, you had no idea, but now you're in trouble because of your association with him. It's called collateral damage. You see, it's not just that we become more like our friends. Sometimes we can get hurt just by being around them. A companion of fools suffers harm. And so just a pro tip on friendship. If they don't take care of themselves, they're not going to take care of you. And if they're not caring about their future, they're not going to care about your future. And sometimes we need to protect ourselves from the influence of our friends. And I'm not saying that we stop caring about them. I'm not saying that we stop being kind to them, and not even that we stop being friendly to them. But there is a type of friend that's sort of that inner circle type of friend, the 2, 3, 4, 5 friends you have in your life that really have influence in your life. And if you let unwise and foolish friends into that circle, all I'm saying is you're very likely to get hurt. And so let me ask you some challenging questions. That group of friends that you run with, that you hang out with more often than not, that group of friends that's moving in the direction of more and more unwise and foolish decisions. Do you need to make a change? Are you comfortable moving in that direction? Because I'm telling you, you could be in the way of collateral damage. Or that person that you're in conversation with about joining together in business, or starting a business together, or working together on a project. But you're just noticing some character stuff. You just have some questions about their honesty and integrity. This could be a really unwise move. And you could be in the way of collateral damage. And let me ask you a really challenging and probably uninvited question. Do you need to break up with him? I mean, it's a guy that you're dating, it's a girl that you're dating. The decisions that they're making, the direction they're heading, kind of making a mess of their life. And you're talking about joining together with them in a very significant way. I mean, do your parents have concerns? Do you need to break up? Because you run the risk of serious collateral damage. And so I guess the question I'm asking you is, are there changes that you're sensing, man, if I'm really going to pursue the way of wisdom in my friendships, I do need to make some changes. But how in the world do you do that? You know, there are seasons where it's just less awkward to make changes in our lives. Have you noticed this? And there are seasons where it's awkward to make changes in our lives. I mean, I think of a time when I was in college and there was this professor where on a Tuesday, he was bald. And on a Wednesday, as in the very next day, full head of hair. Now that's an awkward time to make a change. It's like, bro, summer break, that would have been ideal because a bunch of people wouldn't even known you. There are better times to make changes than others. And you know what? I think we're in a season right now where it's actually a good time to make changes, less awkward. And the reason is because we're in a significant time of transition. And transitions are opportunities for change. I mean, those of you who went to college, when you go off to college, you can reinvent yourself. And when you change jobs, you can change the way that you work and how you relate to people at the new company. When you move across the country, you can make a bunch of changes. And I'm telling you, this season that we're in right now, we're going on 3 months of this stay-at-home order. We have not had many social interactions. And that group of people that you hung out with almost every weekend 3 months ago, you don't have to hang out with them every weekend as we come out of this. And so we're like, couple weeks away from emerging, I think, from this stay-at-home order, from this quarantine thing, and back into a more normal social life. And all I'm saying is this is an opportunity for change. And so are there changes that you need to make in your friendships, either toward somebody who's wise or away from somebody who's increasingly making foolish decisions, because friends have this tendency to pull us in the direction that they're moving? I mean, just one more proverb to kind of seal this idea. There are friends who destroy each other. And friends, is that the kind of friendship that you're in? Maybe it's time to make a change. But the second half here, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. And now we're talking about that quality of friendship that really has a tremendous positive impact on our life. I mean, the kind of friend that is just, they're there for you. They're consistent, faithful, trustworthy. And so let's turn the corner here for part 2 of our conversation, a conversation about quality friendships, the kind of friend who sticks closer than a brother. I wonder, do you have friends like that? You know, the kind of friend that would text you when you're down because they just know. I mean, you didn't have a conversation about it, but they just sensed you and they just reach out to encourage. The kind of friend who would show up with a meal. The kind of friend who would show up in the hospital room even though you didn't ask for them to come. The kind of friend that you call when you make a big mistake because you know they're not going to condemn you, but they're going to help you pick up the pieces and how to figure out how to move forward. The kind of friend that gently confronts you when you're headed in a wrong direction, about to make a big mistake. We're talking about a quality friend, the kind that sticks closer than a brother. And the question I have, maybe the question that you have is how do you find friends like that? How do you find friends that stick closer than family, that quality kind of friend? Well, a couple years ago, I was in some interesting space that maybe you've experienced. I had a good group of friends, but it sort of dissolved. I mean, nothing terrible happened. It's just a couple people moved away, and that one person that was like the gatherer of the friends, like they made a transition. And so suddenly it was like I didn't have that close inner circle group of friends that I relied on. And so what I did is I decided to join a small group, a men's group. And it was one person that I knew and a couple other guys that are perfect strangers to me. And you might be wondering, like, well, how did that go? It was awkward. And if you've ever tried this, the beginning stages are awkward. It's like we're meeting together and I'm going, do I like these guys? Do I actually want to spend every week with these guys? Do I trust these guys? It was awkward at the beginning. But a couple months in, I made a decision. And it was a decision to stick. And so I began to invest in this group of guys, my time, my energy, creativity into the relationship. And something began to form. And so fast forward 5 years, this is my small group, my men's group, and I'm telling you, I've got something special here. I mean, this group of guys, I can trust them. I can go to them with anything. They know me. I mean, we've shared our stories with each other. We've shared our strengths and our struggles. I mean, this is real conversations happen with this group of guys. And something else is that we've begun to really challenge each other. It's not just, fluffy conversations about how's your dog and, a great football game last weekend. No, very challenging conversations. And there's a proverb that kind of captures this idea from chapter 27. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And this is what's happening in our relationships. And it just reminds me of these fishing trips that I took with my dad and my grandpa and my great-grandpa up to Canada. And I just remember my great-grandpa just always sharpening that fillet knife to make that work of cleaning the fish is super quick and effective. It just reminds me of that there's a type of friendship that sharpens the dull areas of our lives, that makes us more effective in our relationships and in our families and in our faith and in our work. And we have these kinds of conversations in my men's group. I mean, something that they're holding me accountable to right now is just bringing my best to my family. And I don't know if you feel this, especially in this season, but I feel like I'm giving like 110% to work. Just trying to navigate all the complexities of this COVID thing and the impact on our organization. And I have this tendency to roll in the driveway in the evening, just spent. I mean, just on E and just bringing, not my best to my family. And this bothers me. And so I've told the group of guys, listen, I need help with this. Ask me about this. Hold me accountable to this. And so we have these challenging conversations where we sharpen each other and we're making each other better and more effective and sharpening up the dull areas of our lives. And so I have discovered this in this small group. Something really special has formed. And I can just envision journeying with these guys for a couple decades. And so again, the question you might be asking, okay, these types of relationships where friends stick closer than family and they sharpen each other, how do you find friends like that? And the answer is, I don't think you do. I don't think you find them. I think you form them. I mean, let's put it this way. Great friendships aren't found, they're formed. What happens is when you invest time, energy, patience into relationships, there is potential that something truly special will be formed. And this is what happened with my small group. Is in this small group of guys, all the necessary building blocks were present for something truly special. But it took investment on behalf of all of us. Hundreds of weekly meetings over breakfast with intentional conversation. You see, friendships, they're not found. Great friendships are formed. So, question for you to wrestle with is where do you need to invest? I mean, in order to experience great quality friendships that have tremendous positive impact on our lives, where do you need to invest? And maybe you're new to the area and you're just sort of in this challenging space where you're trying to make great friendships and you're sort of just waiting for them to find you. Could I challenge you to find a place to invest in others? Because great friendships are not found, they're formed. And I know that many of you would say you're part of Ada Bible Church in the sense that you regularly watch our weekend services. But you know what our desire is for you? That you would connect in relationally, that you would have great friendships based on your relationship with Jesus with other followers in this community. And so are you in a small group? Have you joined a circle of other believers and journeyed through life together? And this idea of small groups is just so central to our strategy as a church. We just believe that these relationships are so important for us to grow in our relationship with Jesus. And so if you're not in a group or it's been a really long time, I would challenge you to invest there. And just an easy way to kind of sign up for a group, just very simple form, adabible.org/groups. But I would challenge you to invest there. Join a small group. And maybe you're in a small group. Or maybe you have a small group of friends, of Jesus followers that you've been journeying through life with. But the truth is, it's kind of going through the motions. So there's not a lot of depth there. And as we talk about this kind of relationship where you sharpen each other, maybe you're sensing that's more of what I need. And maybe the way to invest in that small group that you're already in or that group of friends is just to bring in this thing called accountability, where you open up and you share and you're more vulnerable. Hey, this is what's really going on in my life, and these are some areas that I'm struggling with. And would you encourage me? Would you ask me about it? Would you challenge me? Would you help me sharpen up the dull areas in my life? Maybe that's where you need to invest right now. Because great friendships, they're not found, they're formed. You have to build into them. You have to invest in them. And others of us, maybe you're in a friendship that's sort of drifting. Used to be close, used to have some of those important elements, but just drifting, slipping away. Maybe you're in a marriage that's just really struggling. Just not a lot of common ground. Actually, there's quite a lot of tension. How do you invest in a relationship that's struggling? How do you invest in a relationship that's broken? You know, something that Jesus said, I think is really important here. Because I think he took some of these ideas about brothers or friends that stick closer than brothers and sharpening each other, and he sort of added to this. And so let me show you something from the Gospel of John. Jesus said to his disciples, "My command is this: love each other as I have loved you." He's describing the kind of community that he wants in the church, in his community of followers. Love each other as I have loved you. And how did Jesus love us? Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. And just after Jesus gave these words to his disciples, he would lay his life down. He would go purposely to a Roman cross and die for his friends, for his disciples, and for us. Because here's the deal. Our relationship with God was broken. And how did Jesus invest in that relationship? By laying down his life, by serving us, by sacrificing his life to restore that relationship. And now he says, this is what I need you to do. This is my command. I need you to follow my path. I need you to lay down your life in the same way that I have laid down my life. Serve each other, love each other, go first, sacrifice for the sake of each other. And so how do you invest in a relationship that's struggling? How do you invest in a relationship that's broken? By laying down your life, by embracing the way of Jesus, the path of Jesus. Sacrifice, love, you first. And I'm telling you, those of you who are in a marriage that there's just not a lot of common ground right now. It's just a struggle, a lot of tension. Could I challenge you to invest through sacrifice, through love, through service? Because you see, what often happens in a struggling marriage is we wait for the other person to serve us, to meet our needs. And it's kind of like we just cross our arms and it's like, well, I'll serve them after they start serving me. And it creates this downward spiral because the other person responds in the same way. But there's an opportunity for a different type of spiral, an upward spiral, when we just make a decision to serve and to go first and to lay down our lives and to sacrifice before we get what we want and before the other person starts acting in the way that we believe that they should. It's the way of Jesus. And I'm telling you, this could turn around your struggling marriage. This could restore a broken friendship. This could turn around your relationship with your rebellious teenager. It's the way of Jesus. It's wisdom from Jesus on how to invest in our relationships. And so as we talk about these ideas from the book of Proverbs, that the direction and quality of our lives is connected to the direction and quality of our friendships, I just recognize that a bunch of us are thinking hard right now about changes we might need to make. Some wise people that we just want to be more around, or some foolish friends that maybe we need to create some boundaries, and just questions about where we should invest. And could I just remind you as we close that this is actually a great opportunity for change, because we're in a season of transition. And in a couple weeks, we're going to emerge from this stay-at-home order, and it's going to be kind of back to normal-ish with our social lives. And I would just encourage you to choose the way of wisdom in your friendships. Listen, so grateful for this time together today, and so looking forward to next weekend where we can gather again to explore the book of Proverbs and the way of the wise.